Hey everyone, Aaron here with Elite Water Sports, and today's video is all about learning your first jibes on a wing foil. So stay tuned for those tips and tricks to make your life easier out there on the water. All right, guys, let's do it. Let's learn our first jibes with wing foiling, right? It's definitely an ultimate goal, and you'll always remember your first jibes, at least your first successful jibes. It's really, really a good feeling, right? We always want to set some expectations for the day, and that's always going to start with like the weather conditions and then also the gear that we're using, right? So we always want to have a little bit of power, right? So like blowing 12, gusting 15, mile-an-hour knots, close enough. And then also, set expectations that if you're like in 20 knots, that's not going to make things easier. That's just going to be really, really fast moving pace. And if you were to mess up on anything, it could result in some crashes. So have that good medium wind speed. 15 knots is great, 12 to 15, right? And as far as the gear goes, let's also pick the largest sail, right? Let's go with a little bit of power. So if we mess up our hand switch, or maybe we can look for a little bit more loft and more lift from that wing pulling on it, that'll also lighten you on your toes so that you can move your feet around the board a little easier, okay? So go with a bigger wing, try to get some more power out of it. As far as the board goes, right, the board also will help out tremendously. Now there's two ways to go about it. If we're already kind of foiling and kind of going into our jibes, right, we're not at that bare basics of just like turning the board downwind and switching our feet with the board planted on the water. What I always like to say is that by increasing the lift, it's always helped me, it's always helped all my students, so I have a good track record there, that if I move that foil forward, it's going to increase that lift on that front foot. And what ends up happening is that that board will actually press against that front foot when you switch it out, right? It's actually going to be pushing a little harder so you don't nose down and then flatten the board out into the water. But if you're not there yet, what we can do is that you might have found the perfect spot for you, where it's nice and equal and comfortable. But if you want to remain with the board on the water, what I like to do is move that foil aft so you have less lift, right? With that less lift, that board's going to be more able to stay on the water. So if you shift your weight forward on the board, it's going to be planted in the water, versus that if you accidentally push just a little bit on that back leg, it's not going to want to shoot out of the water immediately. All right, so if you want to do a board on the water jibe, right, not a foiling jibe, let's move that foil aft. And if you want to learn with a foiling jibe, let's move that foil forward to create more lift, right? Also, if you have the ability to have like a 2100 or 2200, the bigger the wing, the better. It's more stable, things, react slower. You're not going to have that foil all over the place, and you can decrease your speed so you don't have to be going 15 mile an hour all over the place in order to sustain foiling. So a bigger front wing is going to help tremendously. A lot of times we do have clients that, maybe possibly don't have a bigger wing. Well, we could just rent you one. So if you have like a North setup, an Armstrong setup, or whatever brand that we carry, like GoFoil, we can actually rent you a big wing to learn some new tricks like jibing or tacking or whatnot for the day. So, which is pretty cool. So let's break down the three different jibes. And what I mean by that, you can either jibe, do your foot switch, right? Before the turn, before the transition. You can do it during the transition, or you can do it after the transition. I'm a firm believer that if you learn to do the switch, your foot switch, before the transition, you'll have ample amount of power as you return, go from toe side and return to heel side around that turn, right? And you actually have power out of the gate right away. So therefore, if you're in light conditions, super light conditions, you're able to carry that power and carry that speed throughout the whole entire turn. So let's first focus on that upwind before the transition footwork, okay? So start on the beach, right? If it's light breeze, spend some time up here. Don't always just practice out in the water. What I like to do is make sure that I understand where that wind's coming from and have a box made into the sand meaning I know what crosswind is, I know what upwind is, I know what downwind is, right? And what you want to practice doing is walking with your sail and learn to switch those hands so that you have power to come out of that turn right away. And as you get good at that, power right away, you're creating muscle memory on your hands to go to the exact spot they need to be. So you're not like here, you're actually holding on to the actual bar, or the boom. And then what you want to do is start visualizing yourself going downwind. So this is you kind of backwinding the sail, kind of going downwind. You still have pressure and breeze. You do your hand switch, and then boom, back to the other direction. Then what we can start practicing is the foot switch. So if I'm riding heel side, I can shuffle, 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 practice heel side, go to toe side, shuffle a little bit, come around the corner, and remember how you're riding should be the shuffle where that heel side is into the breeze. Same thing going back the other way. I'm going to switch, shuffle, heel side. And that really sends home your muscle memory on how those hands should work on your booms, okay? Next thing is start to add a little bit of a load and pop. Now it makes sense a little more once we get out to the water, but in essence, you're gonna be walking kind of 45 into the breeze, and right before you do that switch, you're going to pull in on that sail so you have extra lift. You're also going to edge into the breeze, do your foot switch, and then come around the corner. So again, you're going to go into that breeze, shuffling. You're going to pull down on your sail, on your wing. That'll give you lift, at the same time edging into the breeze. That gives you more lift. Once you are light on your toes, that's when you switch your feet. Boom, you're in that new direction, toe side now. You come around that corner, your hands are in position, switch, and boom. So pulling down on that wing, edging into the breeze, do that switch, boom, come around the corner, start working on your hands, and back the other way. That little bit of lift from the wing is crucial to your success to lighten your toes on the board. You don't want to have all of your weight down on the board because it's going to be more sensitive. If you can get a little bit of lift out of this wing and a little bit of lift by edging into that breeze with your board, with your wing or your wing board, that foil will create a little bit more lift, press against your feet a bit, and it'll be easier for you to switch those feet. All right, so practice that as much as you can up on the beach. Even though it's unrideable right now, I'm still going to visualize, even for like tacking or jibing, how to get that wing from left and right and know exactly where my hands should be. So have some fun on the beach and learn exactly how to fly it. We are now out in the water. We're ready for this, right? We have practiced for countless hours up on the beach, moving our hands around, simulating your jibes, your tacks, everything, just getting really good at flying your wing. Now we're out here in the water and we're ready to do our first jibes. The easiest way to do that is to foil into your transition. You want to make sure that you set it down. You're back on that touch and go stage. You set that board planted into the water, right? Well, after you do that, make sure that you keep an upwind angle, and then you're gonna bring that wing up high. Don't forget about that wing creating lots and lots of lift if you bring it above your head. So you'll have full arm extension. You'll bring that arm in when you're ready to move your feet. So you'll sheet in, you'll also pump in, you'll bring that wing in, and it'll allow you to be lighter on your toes so that it's easier for you to move them. What you wanna do is bring your back foot forward to the front position, and then immediately bringing your front foot, your old front foot, to now your new back foot, right? If you don't mess up your front foot, chances are you're going to be super successful. So focus on your new front foot, bringing that back foot forward, planting it in the exact spot you need it to be, and then you can actually move your old front foot into the rear position. When deciding whether or not to do your foot switch before or after the jibe, here's a little pro tip for you. We always want to actually execute the turn itself with our most natural stance, whether right foot forward or left foot forward. So what you want to do is prep yourself. If you know that you're going to the right and your right foot forward is your more natural stance, let's go ahead and execute that transition and then do the foot switch. Same goes back the other way. If you're already in your goofy stance or your not so natural stance, what we want to do is prepare ourselves for this turn. Let's be more confident in it. Let's do that foot switch before that jibe so that we're more natural coming around that turn. This is going to amplify your progression, and then we can backtrack later down the road to get to where we're more equal on both sides. If you've already mastered this whole jibe thing with the board planted in the water and your touch and go stage, now you're ready to foil. Foiling is just the same. It's nothing different than what you've already learned. But we can add a couple tips here to make it even easier for you. Instead of doing kind of a stutter stance, bringing that foot forward, the back foot forward, and ending up next to each other and then shifting them back, you are going to have to do a bit of a hop. A hop where you're shifting those feet back and forth rather than planting, then moving them back. So it is going to be a little bit different there, and it has to happen a little quicker. To help this happen, remember that wing is all about lift. That wing can create the lift that you need to be lighter on your toes. So having that wing up high and pulling that bar in, the boom in, to create that lift will make it easier for you to do a switch. For me, what I've learned, that if I actually angle the board into the breeze with the board very close to the water, I'll raise that board up as high as I can without breaching the foil. And as soon as it gets to that full apex, the highest point, I'm going to do the foot switch. What this is going to do is that after I've done that foot switch, it allows me to have some confidence because the board will then now go back towards the water, increasing that power. Additionally, by angling into that breeze, you have now confidently increased your power in that kite or that wing. Increased power, increased stability is going to help you maintain that constant pull all the way around the corner. Now let's talk about how to make that foot switch a little easier by applying a little bit of technique with the wing. The wing has a lot of lift, and of course it's going to have more lift if you're putting yourself in better conditions, more breeze. What you can do is bring that wing above your head, extending those arms before you do the foot switch. As you extend those arms up, that wing is now so high that when you pull it down pretty aggressively, it's going to release some of that weight off your feet, making you lighter, almost like you can dance across your dance floor. This is your board, right? So right before you do your foot switch, you're going to bring that wing up high, extend those arms out, pull in really aggressively, creating a lot of lift, making you lighter on your feet, and therefore making it easier for you to move your feet. Applying all these techniques all together does take some time. The first thing that you want is power. You need to keep that momentum going. You need to keep that forward acceleration going. Everything is in that wing. Make sure that you have your hands in place and ready to sheet in and grab more power. Now, if you need to, just go right into pumping the board and pumping the sail at the same exact time. I've made it a habit, no matter if I need it or not, every jibe, every tack, to go right into pumping that wing, pumping that board, even if I need it or not. Maybe I'll just do one or two, but at least that power is there for me to grab. Earlier in the video, we described the jibe as 3 different ways of doing it. Either doing your foot switch before, during, or after. And by far, it's easier to do it way before the jibe or way after the jibe. As you get better and more confident, then you start closing that gap a bit where you're actually doing your foot switch in the middle of your jibe or at the very beginning of it. And that just comes over time. In conclusion, we hope that we made this easier for you to get out in the water and progress with your first foiling jibes. We want to also reiterate that breaking it down like we've done is going to help you tremendously. Don't forget about spending that time up on the beach, learning those Transitions, visualizing what you'll be doing out on the water. We want to make you confident before you enter the water. Do it, it'll help you. Once you get out there on the water, remember all the little tidbits. Remember that using that wing up high, creating lift, and being light on your feet is going to make it easier for you to do the switches. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this channel, please subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll see you out on the water.